What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today I want to take you through wrapping your ankles. Now this is very important to know how to do. Number one, in case you injure your foot or your ankle and you need to make sure you're taping while you recover but continue to train. Or number two, you want to pre-tape before the fight. Now, not all athletic commissions allow you to tape your ankles before the fights. I love when they do. I love the extra support and the little bit of extra protection you can provide your foot so that when you finish, your foot doesn't blow up like a balloon. Anytime I'm given the opportunity to tape my ankle, I do it. Now, there are loads of videos out there on how to wrap your hands, but not many on how to tape your ankles if we're talking about it from a fight perspective and not, let's say, a physio perspective. So today, guys, how does a world champion kickboxer tape his ankles before he fights? Coming up after the intro. Alright guys, taping the ankles. My channel is all about bringing you that information which other people share, but more importantly to me, the information within the fight world that a lot of people don't talk about. And taping the ankles, it's just something that I had to learn by myself through trial and error. Nobody really did it for me. I couldn't look up how to do it. So I hope this episode is super informative, super helpful for so many of you out there. And if you guys appreciate the unique content, please give the video a like and subscribe. Of course, it helps the channel, helps everything grow so much. I really appreciate it. Now guys, let's get into this ankle taping. The first thing to note about wrapping your own foot is how much tape you need. That's very important to do a proper full tape job, assuming you're allowed to put layers on. Now we're not talking about making a cast that's just going to make your leg like impenetrable and you won't be able to feel if you check kicks or something like that. We're not talking about that. We're just talking about putting a couple extra layers. But many commissions will only allow you to put 1 or 2 strips on each area of the foot. In my experience, you don't need any more than 1 roll of tape for both feet. That's what I find personally. Half a roll of tape gives me enough for 1 foot. Now today, I'd say I'm rocking about 1/3. This is all I have left. So I'm just gonna treat this like we're doing a very light tape job. I'm at an athletic commission where they don't allow a lot of layers. And that's how I've been taping for the last 3 or 4 years anyway. If you're in China or Japan, you tape away. But if you're in Europe, you're a little bit more sparse. If you're in the States, it seems like you either can't do it at all or you can get away with just 1 or 2 layers around each area just for support, and you usually have to clear that with the athletic commission prior to your fight. So the first thing that I like to do is I start off and I put 2 anchors. An anchor is just basically a spot that we're going to build off to make sure that the tape doesn't fall off midway through the fight. Now I like to usually cut the tape first. If I put it on and then try and cut it, that's difficult, but mostly because I just do this like a savage and I bite it. So I get a little piece of tape off here. I usually find that for myself, you have to always cover. This is important to know. You always have to cover your tape with something. So for me, I cover with an ankle brace. The ankle braces usually go up to about there. So normally I'll put an ankle brace on before. I'll check, make sure that the tape is not going to be poking out because you don't want to have to redo it. But let's just say, for argument's sake, that it's right about there. So I go around, I put on 1 strip of tape and I flex through the shin, because you don't want to do it really tight and then feel like you're cutting off your blood supply after a short period of time. So I put 1 anchor strip on my ankle and then I do the same thing on my foot. Again, if I had my ankle brace, I would check and see where it's going to go to. I don't want the tape to protrude out. I put down my little anchor there. And now when I put down my tape strips, which is what we're going to do next, I actually have anchors to build off. And the tape is much more likely to stick. From here, I like to just measure out approximately what kind of distance I need. Now, if we do this with our foot, obviously the 2 anchors are much closer, but if we go like this, then when we sort of step down, it just all squishes. So what I like to do is I like to find sort of a middle ground. Just kind of put my foot in a neutral area. I just generally will go crisscross to start, especially if my piece of tape is too long. I'll connect on 1 anchor, connect on the other anchor, and I do 1 warm-up strip like that. And then again, I'll do another one going the opposite direction. Now, an area for me that I really like to support and I really like to cover, if possible, is right in this sort of meaty section in between the foot and the shin bone. So what I'll usually do, again, if I can get away with it, we're going to go with some smaller strips of tape here. I'll do about 5 or 6 small strips of tape directly straight up and down. I'm going to turn this foot so you guys can just see this a little bit closer here. Hopefully you guys can get a good view of that. The first two I did crisscross. Now I'm going straight up and down. Normally I would do, as I said, about 6 of those, but today I'm just going to go through and I'm going to do 1 strip over everything so I cover the entire front of the leg. I'm constantly checking and flexing my foot to make sure that I can still point it properly. If I want to round kick, you don't want to have it so tight that you can't point your toes or your foot. And then from here I put on 1 final strip, and as I already mentioned, depending on the commission, I will make adjustments right now. If I can get away with a lot, I'll probably do maybe 9 strips. I'll do 3 over each little section there. And now this entire portion of the foot that often gets bruised if you catch an elbow, it has a little bit more coverage. Now I know this doesn't look like much yet, but it is surprisingly supportive. I can feel my leg already locked down, but we haven't done any figure eighting. We haven't done anything to provide any support to the lower ankle. Now the next technique I like to use is starting off on the inside of the leg. I'm going to do from here, it's just like a little crisscross. I'm going to draw down and under my heel, and then I'm going to come back up across the shin and over to the opposite side where I started. And same thing, I like to flex my leg just a little bit to make sure everything's tense. I don't want it to tighten up and feel like it's cutting off my blood supply. So I come all the way across, and now from here, ooh, I sort of jumbled up my tape there a little bit. It's not as pretty because I'm just going through fast. But now from here, I have the flexion, the support of going this direction plus the padding, and now it's a little bit more difficult with that sideways movement. And then a lot of times from here, what I'd like to do is I'd like to provide a lot of support around the bottom of the foot and around the top as well. So I'll put a couple little more strips. I never like to go more than 1 rotation around the entire foot. So I just put down single strips, little anchors, just all the way around. So again, I'm providing some more coverage for the top of the foot, but I'm just also locking things down a little bit better. And I'll do the same thing once I get to the midsection of the leg. I'll do the same thing on the upper section now as well. And I'll wrap all the way around the leg throughout the entire shin, just at least as high as I've gone. And I just continue to do that all the way around. Just trying to, I know nobody's going to see this anyway when you're fighting, but just trying to clean it up. This is a very sloppy tape job. I haven't done one since my last fight in Europe. So we're talking quite a while ago. But basically I'll just continue to go around the entire leg. I'll make sure this whole thing gets secured off. But the priority for me personally is to make sure I have a lot of padding up in here, just a little bit of extra support as well. And if you finish and you're still like, oh, you know what, I can get away with a little bit more, then I just take some individual strips and I just stick them across. I'll do that usually all the way up the entire leg. The strip, 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 strip. And now from there, I usually have a decent amount of support, a decent amount of coverage, and I can throw my ankle wrap over after this point and everything's good to go. So I like to use this kind of ankle taping technique, either if I have an injury on the top of my foot or through the shin or a little bit of instability. I've had times before where, you know, you throw a kick and you catch right on the toes and the whole foot overflex, and then this whole area in there just feels like all the ligaments are just overstretched. So this position here, it basically restricts me from going past the flexion point which I want. So when I throw kicks, everything's a little bit more secure. It also helps provide or reduce any possible bruising that might happen. So if you clunked your foot on an elbow a couple days earlier, you can do this whole tape job, help lock it up. And then finally, a lot of times we talked about the sort of figure 8 where I come from one side under the ankle and I come over to the other side. When I do that 3 or 4 times, the whole leg becomes very stable. I've only done 1 so far, so you can see from the sideways, I can still wobble my ankle, but it locks in completely, and now everything is nice and secure. And honestly, I could probably do 5 times the amount of tape I put on today if I was allowed to really get away with a lot. But for the most part, I find this little bit makes a world of difference. It's crazy, especially if you're in the gym, you throw a shin pad on, it's just completely locked in, and it's just so super helpful. And it's just something that I wanted you guys to understand in case you're going, oh, you know what, I want to start taping my ankles, but I just don't really know how to start, where to finish. And guys, keep in mind, I always suggest that you tape your ankles 3 or 4 times before you compete, making sure it's something that feels good, make it something that you're comfortable with, and it's not going to throw you off in the fight. The last thing you want to do is on fight night be like, oh yeah, I'm going to try and tape my ankles for the first time ever, and then you get in and you go, oh, this feels awful, and I couldn't move the way I wanted, or I cut off my blood supply down to my feet, and it wasn't working for me. So test it out prior to training sessions, even if you don't actually need it for support or for protection, but you want to utilize it in the fight. It's very important to try it out first. And there you have it, guys. I hope you found that helpful. I hope if you've been suffering from injuries, you will actually get the tape. You'll take the preventative measures to help your ankle, your foot, whatever the injury down in that lower part of your leg is. You help it heal. And if you have a fight where you're allowed to tape your ankles, I hope you find this technique helpful. If you guys enjoyed the video, please give it a like. If you haven't already, join the channel and get subscribed for more awesome fight tips, just like the episode brought you today. Guys, train hard, and I'll see you back here soon for another video.